Today, I'm going to explain what is enlightenment. I mean, I thought it was otherworldly. I got a master's degree in East Asian religious studies. I lived in Chinese Buddhist monasteries, but that's not what did it. What did it was learning to process my emotional pain, learning to turn my emotional wounds into personal wisdom. And then that was the kind of prime event of, oh, when I turned that big wound into that much wisdom. All right, I'm Carrie Blazer, the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene, the divine feminine. And part of my soul's purpose is to expand my own emotional range. And as the heartbeat of the collective on earth, is to help everyone else expand their emotional range and understand what enlightenment is. Understand that life is like a trampoline. We have to explore our depths, our fear, guilt, and shame to catapult us to our heights. Love, compassion, and enlightenment, all based on the laws of physics. So today we're going to do a deep dive into what is enlightenment and what psychologists have to say about it, what physicists have to say about it, and then I'm going to kind of explain the through line of my enlightenment experiences that started in March of 2024. All right, let's start with what is enlightenment. I'm going to share my screen here. Wrong one. Okay. Based on the laws of physics, we're going to rely on the map of consciousness by Dr. David R. Hawkins. So I experienced enlightenment the first time March of 2024, but I'll get into that whole experience in a minute. But I didn't know. It was so wild. My kids were like, "Mom, are you mentally ill? Mom, what's going on?" So much happened. So I had to, explain to myself, explain to my kids, like understand what happened to me. So this is when I found the map of consciousness. I'm like, oh, this is so helpful because I know that physicists have proven that we all have energy bodies or souls, and our souls communicate out through our hearts. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense that energy bodies, our souls out through our hearts communicate via emotions. So our souls vibrate at different frequencies based on our emotions and what's coming out of our heart, with shame being 20 hertz and enlightenment being 700 to 1,000 hertz. So the first time I experienced enlightenment, I was sitting in my chair for 3 days and I barely ate, slept, or drank anything. I was like, zzz, like vibrating so high. The second I started on a Tuesday, the next morning, I remember hearing enlightenment, 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 like an alarm in my head. I reached that level. I could kind of see, like in a game, you reach a level, like that's where I was, right? And so, I received profound wisdom, and then I faced catastrophic fears. So with enlightenment being the highest vibrating energy, it's the most transformative. So when human beings don't have access to their full emotional range, then it's hard to develop into healthy, mature, emotional adults. So, but I had to accept that how did I get from all that fear, guilt, and shame up into enlightenment? And this is where laws of physics explain too. There's a 2-ball experiment where you put one ball on like a slightly downhill track, another ball on a track with hills and valleys. Which ball reaches the finish line first? Balls are identical, length is identical, but it's technically longer with the hills and valleys. Which one reaches the finish line first? Well, I'm going to tell you it's the hills and valleys. Why? Because the ball gains kinetic energy on the way down. There's a surrender into this, we have to explore our depths to catapult us to our heights. And our depths, we gain a lot of kinetic energy, a lot of propulsion and momentum, and then we hit the bottom, turn that wound into wisdom, and the wisdom catapults us up to our next mountaintop. So the surrender is the feminine and the climb is the masculine. My problem was I was down in fear, guilt, and shame for, most of my life until the past about 5 years, and I didn't know how to get out. My parents didn't know how to get out. They never taught me. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was a workaholic. I was, projected on a lot of shame, guilt, and fear by my parents because that's what was in their hearts. So that came out of their hearts onto me. We live in a holographic universe. Like I said here, the universe is a mirror showing us ourselves in every moment as a constant feedback loop. But they didn't understand that. They lacked awareness. So what happened? They thought that because I trigger them, I'm wrong, which is a very, oh, I gotta grab it, which is a very codependent way of thinking. You know, if the universe is a mirror, how can I be responsible for anybody else's emotions? And when I do take responsibility for other people's emotions, how well does that turn out for me? Well, that's very codependent. Well, I'll ask you, when you're codependent, when you take responsibility for other people's emotions, is that your downfall or your rise? I'll let you answer that. So this physics experiment here, I'll play it in a second, it shows how this functions, how the universe is a mirror. So when part of our soul resonates at like 40 hertz of shame, and we perceive shame outside of ourselves, that is our soul showing us our own shame, not the other person's shame necessarily. It is self-reflection. When our soul shows us beauty outside of ourselves, that is our soul showing us our own beauty. How, I remember one time I kept telling the shaman, you're so bright, you're so bright. But my soul was showing me my own brightness. And it took me, I had to reflect, oh, wait, I'm bright too, because I noticed it in her. So let's see how this works from a laws of physics perspective. I have to back this up. Here we go. So when they don't notice each other. There's no resonance. There's no equal vibration. There's no vibrational match. But when you have a vibrational match at 440 and 440, you see movement, then that draws attention. It's not moving. When something's moving, then it draws your attention. That's how we all create. Oh, whoops. I didn't mean to do that. That's how we all create our own reality. Oh, what is that? Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing this, but anyway, stop sharing. So that is how we all create our own reality, is based on the vibrations of our souls. So something else I learned from Dr. David R. Hawkins is that when a soul experiences enlightenment, it opens up attractor energy cells in the soul. And the heart is a vortex. It's a magnet. The electromagnetic field around the heart is 5,000 times stronger than the brain. The neurological structure in the heart is far more complex and sends 90% more signals to the brain than the other way around. But the heart and the emotions, that's the feminine. So the feminine submits its emotions to the brain, and the brain decides what to do. Feminine surrenders, masculine decides. It is what, it's masculine and feminine. That's the balance in life, masculine and feminine. And that, getting to that, leads me to my enlightenment experiences. But I want to show you how the heart works first so that we can talk about it really openly. And, when someone, historically experienced enlightenment, everyone wanted to know what they had to say. There's the attractor. So what happens when I experience enlightenment and my soul is connected to all other souls through my heart space, then I naturally positively influence all other souls through my attractor energy cells. So when one person experiences enlightenment, it helps everybody through a process called morphic resonance. In the 1940s, here's an example of how that works. In the 1940s, there was a runner men were trying to run the mile in under 4 minutes, but that's very hard. So one guy figured it out, and in the next year, 500 guys did it. Because he figured it out, he helped the soul of the 500 other guys also do it. So I'm going to use an Einstein quote to explain how that works. The field is the soul governing agency of the particle. The field meaning the energy field, the particle meaning the body. And this is mirrored in spirituality. They say the spiritual, the 5D, comes before the 3D. I got to think of a hamburger, and then my mouth salivates. I think of sex, then I get excited, right? Everything starts in the consciousness, in the soul, and then we manifest. Okay? So the heart is a vortex. Then when I found this a few weeks ago, I'm like, this makes so much sense because the universe is a mirror. And a vortex projects out so you can see the rim. Think of a black hole, and that's creation. Feminine, heart, vortex, creation, right? It all goes together. And so the heart, projects out, sends signals up to the brain. And then that heart, when our emotions hit the quantum field, like in other souls, then the parts of us that are moving will be attracted to the same parts in others that are moving. And that's what draws us in. Like, how many women have you heard, why are there so many narcissists? Okay, girlfriend, the guys you attract because of the wounds and the wisdom in your soul are narcissists, because they will help you see yourself the best. And I know that because I used to attract narcissists left, right, and center, because they would trigger me and then I would see myself. And that's the main way I learned that triggers are my healing friend and not my healing foe. And Carl Jung said something similar. What irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding about ourselves. So let me pull up the video about the heart being a vortex. It's fascinating. And then I'm going to follow it up with showing how a heart forms in an embryo. It's amazing.
Let me just read this because I think it's actually probably one of the best descriptions of the heart that I've ever run across. They taught you the heart was just a glorified meat pump, that it squeezes and pushes blood like some crude mechanical device, a hydraulic engine made of flesh. That is what they want you to believe, because if you buy into that primitive lie, you never ask deeper questions. But it is false. It has always been false. And the real science proves it. Dr. Francesco Torrenguas, a Spanish cardiac researcher, discovered what the textbooks refuse to acknowledge, that the heart is not a pump. He dissected thousands of hearts and found that the heart is a single continuous muscle band folded into a spiral. He proved that the heart works like a vortex generator, creating suction and torque, not pressure. He called it the helical ventricular myocardial band, and it changes everything. The real movement of the blood comes from pressure differentials, electromagnetic flow, and coherent resonance. The blood spirals naturally. It need not be forced through miles of arteries and capillaries. The so-called pump is not strong enough to push thick fluid through 60,000 miles of tubing. That is basic physics. That lie was dead on arrival. Here is the truth. Blood moves before the heart forms in the embryo. That is, by the way, a documented fact.
Like Tesla always said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's what he's about to tell us about the fetus.
It flows via frequency, resonance, and electric charge. The body is a field, not a factory. Your heart creates a toroidal electromagnetic field that radiates 6 meters from the body. This field syncs with the earth, the sun, and every living being around you.
This is why Native Americans always said we're in relationship with the animals and the earth and the sun. They had understanding of this that Westerners didn't, because we ascribe everything. I mean, the Western worldview, the Christian worldview is God's in charge. Like, we're just, God told us to do it. God gave us dominion over the animals in nature. Well, you never hear that from Native Americans. It didn't give us dominion over. But what happens when we had dominion over? Oh, we killed 60 million buffalo. Oh, we killed all the beavers and the wolves and the otters, and then we created, our climate change. We can't store carbon in natural ways. I mean, keystone species regulate the environment in ways we never can, because they're intuitive. They know what to do to create a healthy environment for long-term success. But kill all the buffalo, get rid of the indigenous, bring cattle in. Well, check out the prairies. They're not doing very well.
It is a resonator, a tuner, a conductor. It aligns the rhythm of your cells. It feels, it remembers, it emits, and it responds to emotion, thought, light, sound, and breath. When you feel love, grief, fear, or peace, your heart transmits it. It is the central frequency modulator of your biology, not a pump. And the institutions know this. The Heart Math Institute has measured these fields for decades. They know the heart has more neuronal cells than parts of the brain.
Right? The neurological structure in the heart is far more complex than the brain, and the heart sends far more signals to the brain the other way around.
They know it is a second brain. They know coherence in the heart transforms the entire nervous system. So why are they still teaching children a 400-year-old guess from William Harvey that has never been updated?
I would say that's an external locus of control. Like that's a Christian worldview. Well, the heart is external to the blood, so it's the one doing all the work. God is external locus of control. But if we tell everyone's energy field is a vortex, and you're that powerful to create, and you have inner authority to experience enlightenment, have a direct connection to God, well, then that doesn't really resonate with Christianity saying the cross is the only ladder to heaven. And then being able to control people saying, oh, if you do this now, after death, you get to heaven. Well, that's in direct opposition to the fact that we live in a holographic universe. I know we didn't have that knowledge, 2,000 years ago, but we did know that the inner authority was shut down in the early Christians in favor of a very institutionalized church run by men. Reincarnation of Mary Magdalene, yeah, it comes up. But my soul's name is Sophia, that's wisdom, and JC, who I know from my childhood, his soul's name is Christ, knowledge, and we go together. So JC, his name is Jason Colvin, head of global security at GoDaddy, former FBI. We come here to make the darkness conscious. So now I'm going to share a Carl Jung quote that really solidified with my older daughter what enlightenment is, and then I'm going to show you the infant, the embryonic heart development. But oh gosh, now I lost my train of thought. I'm 55 and I'm tired. I'll just be honest. What was I going to tell you? It's okay. It'll come back. Let's go to the embryonic heart and then hopefully it'll come back. So what it says is, long before your heart ever beat, thousands of cardiac cells made a silent decision. There was no pulse, no rhythm, no sound. In the earliest stages of development, individual heart cells begin firing electrical signals on their own. Then something remarkable happens. They synchronize. How do they synchronize? Energy, frequency, and vibration. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Separate impulses align into one coordinated electrical wave. That wave triggers the first contraction, the first heartbeat, the beginning of a rhythm that can last a lifetime. Mother, sorry. So let me get into what happened during my enlightenment experiences. So women experience emotions. If you've ever been in a relationship with a woman, you know that it takes her longer to get upset and then stop being upset. And that's all physiological. Men get a rush of testosterone, they figure it out, and then it drops and they're done. Women, it goes up and then it takes a while for it to go out. So it's almost as if women look for other things to be mad about. It's just they're getting it out of their system. So and women's nervous systems are far more robust than men's nervous systems. So we're designed for the more emotional connection work and to be in our emotions longer because our nervous systems are designed to tolerate that. Men's nervous systems are not designed for that. They're designed to break from their emotions, turn off their emotions, turn on their logic to plan and strategize in the physical world. Not that they don't express emotions, of course they do, but that's what healthy testosterone does for men. They disconnect. We connect and they disconnect. We deal with birth, they deal with death. Both are necessary, both equally important. You can't have life without death. Okay? So my book is My Inner Heroine Exploring Feminine Pain. And I had so much feminine pain. And you know what? I'm going to share my website. I think that will be help to kind of get into how much pain. There's a picture here. A picture speaks 1,000 words, right? And my website, let me share my website. Okay. Sorry. Okay, here's my website. Here's my green Karman Gia, green being the heart chakra, the divine feminine. Like I had to have a green Karman Gia, and I had worked at Hot Dog on a Stick, yes, making lemonade and corn dogs, from the time I was 14, even though I was raised in an affluent town. I didn't have, my childhood was hard. And so I bought my own car, and that was really great for me. And that job, I was making double minimum wage by the time I graduated high school and in college. So it was a great job for me. So I'm not complaining. But let me share. There I am. So there I was at 5 years old. That was me at 5 years old. That is when, yeah. You can come back and read this, but it's between me and JC, it's very difficult. A lot of trauma, a lot of heart. Anyway, this is what I'm trying to share, is this picture. When I resonated with this about 2 years ago, it's a statue of a grieving parent. I'm like, why am I resonating the statue of a grieving parent? I didn't lose any kids. Well, I got 3 kids. Like, what? I never had an abortion. What are you talking about? The universe is a mirror. That was like the first kind of massaging the energy of getting me into what happened in my childhood. And you can, read it here. But my whole heart was gone my whole life. My only memory from kindergarten until like the last year and a half when I healed with JC, is I would play alone in the kindergarten room. Yeah. Oh, I remember the quote I was going to share. I'll share it in a minute. I would just play alone with blocks in the kindergarten room. But that was me my whole life. Well, let me share that quote before I keep going on. But so in order to explain to my daughter what enlightenment is, my older daughter, the Carl Jung quote. Carl Jung quote is, one does not become enlightened by imagining beings of light, but by making their darkness conscious. Imagining beings of light is brain work. Heart work is where you make your darkness conscious, because there's the emotional work. So JC and I, 2,000 years ago, he was showing problems in the temple and other ways to heal yourself. And, I was helping him. I'm wisdom, he's knowledge. But 2,000 years ago, I couldn't come out as wisdom. And so when I got that quote, my older daughter really understood, and I showed her that map of consciousness, and I was like, okay, this is what's happened, and this is why it's so hard, and now I have to process all these fears. But I needed that help, that huge kind of transformative energy to unearth all of this wisdom and the fears from my soul, and I needed enlightenment. So what did I see the first time? So after I heard enlightenment, I'm like, okay. I've lived in Chinese Buddhist monasteries. No one taught me it's an emotion. Like I didn't have no idea what was going to happen in enlightenment. And I know people have different experiences, and mostly we hear about men. So I'd say men go in for 2 to 4 hours and then they're out because that's what they need. They don't need the intensity. They're not the emotional center. So I asked the universe, what wisdom do I have to see? And first they showed me the first responders, and 2 men in my book that helped me heal are fire academy instructors. And so I'm like, oh, well, there is a mental illness crisis. Okay, well, what about the family? Oh, divorce. Oh, that's a mess. Oh, it's a mess. I'm like, okay, take me back to the beginning. There was God, and then what? Like everything's messed up. But what I had to accept is we have to explore our depths to catapult us to our heights. And as a collective, we all collectively had to explore our fear, guilt, and shame fully to gain all that momentum to catapult all of us up into enlightenment, all based on the laws of physics. So that's why trans kids, that's why so much murder and shame and guilt, and that's why. Oh, that was a lot to accept. Okay, so then I'm an analyst. So then I started analyzing God. Like my analytical skills are 96th percentile. That's what I mean by I'm an analyst. So I recognize I have excellent pattern recognition. So I'm like, okay, well, God creates and orchestrates, but creation is feminine. And oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. Creation is feminine. And so why are we ascribing a feminine job to a masculine God. And why is God masculine in, the Christian worldview, which is, I'm in America. This is what my ex-husband's Israeli, that's the worldview here. And so I'm like, well, what if we make feminine equal to masculine? And this is, I only accepted that I'm a reincarnation of Mary Magdalene 2025, and this is March of 2024, so I had no idea. By that point, all I had heard intuitively is that I'm on the Jesus Council and that we are on a mission from God, like the Blues Brothers. Well, I went to high school in the 80s, and Jason was ASB president, and they would always organize toga parties and all of the things going on in the 80s. So Blues Brothers, Ray Bans, they were into all that. So it makes sense that his soul told me that as kind of like a joke, as like, winky, winky. But I wasn't thinking about that then. I'm like, okay, because I didn't I don't immediately go to Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ. I speak Chinese. I didn't study Western religious history. I studied Chinese and Japanese religious history. And I met my ex-husband in Tibet. And he's Israeli. Like, I was full of Asia. So I'm like, well, if we restore, feminine equal to masculine, and we give women, credit and value for creation, and then men credit for execution, and we mirror that in the family. So women are valued to being the emotional center, because emotional intimacy is where mental health is created and sustained. Then we can make progress as a society. I'm like, oh, well, like that. Okay, like there's the problem. It's in the worldview. So that was my first Enlightenment experience. And then I had tons of catastrophic fears about their dad's house. And, I faced all that. Then in November of 2024, I was intuitively guided to reach out to Jason for the first time in 40 years. Now, he read the text but didn't respond. That's in my book. He's called Jared in the book, because I just hadn't accepted everything yet. I just had to do it that way. And so he reached out, and then within a couple of minutes, there's just this huge opening between us. And it was just like so much more powerful than all the other men. The men in my book are powerful men. Like the first guy attracted into my life named Tim, multimillionaire, and then Justin Waller, who's Andrew Tate's best friend. I was watching YouTube videos trying to understand why one man, needs multiple women, which was Tim's challenge. And I'm like, why would that happen to me? Not understanding that probably happened to me in my marriage. But I just, I was too shut down to even notice. So anyway, so then it was Justin, then that was June of 2022. And Jason got the job at GoDaddy in May of 2022. Because I came into Justin's life 2 months before Andrew's takedown started, where they canceled him on social media and took away his payment processing center. And then he was thrown in solitary confinement. It kind of felt like I was working in lockstep with someone, but I didn't even think of Jason. Jason actually came through doing my first Enlightenment experience. I'm like, Jason, like, what's up? Like, why are you here? And I had cognitive dissonance because I had a picture of him on my phone that I'd put in like 2 years earlier. Oh yeah, he was ASB president. He used to stare at me. It's just like trying to bring back memories. But there's the cognitive dissonance that I couldn't go, this is probably why I got a picture of my phone, because I'm in this Enlightenment experience trying to figure everything out, right? So, and with the fifth guy in my book, the fire captain, I remember after I helped him, it was in the middle of the night, like I was talking to him while I was dreaming or something, that it felt like a shamanic final exam. Because what would happen with these men, I would meet them at yoga or online, and then I would talk to their soul, and then we both heal. Like I didn't go on a date with any of them, but I was in their heart, and they were in my heart. Okay, let's improve ourselves, right? It was, win-win. So I was like, okay, it's like a final exam. I'm like, okay, but I'm thinking, oh, I'm a healer and he's firefighter, and I can, why can't I get with this guy? Oh, but I had to reflect on my marriage. The universe is a mirror. This happened, this opens, and it's like, if in the book is called Jim, that if the fire captain was a 1, then Jason was a 10. whoa, the challenge, like he was so avoidant of me, but coming to realize when a man has feelings for a woman, then he kind of backs up and looks and, then he's more on guard and he's like figuring it out. He doesn't just open immediately. He's like, oh, I got to present myself. Like this one's different. So I started talking to him soul and it was just like fireworks. And I was, I'm in and out of enlightenment. I had like 7 or 8 enlightenment experiences. And the first one, I asked the universe, like, what is going on? Like, why is he so special? Like, okay, what is going on? Like, can you show me how souls are created? And they're like, okay, you're not ready for that. I'm like, okay. Can you show me how masculine and feminine souls are created? And the universe said, okay, we'll show you that. Okay. So this is what I was shown. We start as a soul, and there's the feminine and the masculine qualities all in the same soul. And then we wanted to expand our emotional range, expand ourselves, expand our consciousness. And we needed to see ourselves to do that, to see this is what's working and this is what's not working, right? So then we had to split into opposites, and opposites are our best mirror. Like you only know what tall is when you know what short is. You know what beautiful is when you know what ugly is. And that's the dual nature of reality. And then, God not mirroring the dual nature of reality was really like how we made the image of God when God doesn't mirror the dual nature of reality. What? Like a lot of things didn't line up. And I know when something's true, it's true in multiple places, and the inconsistencies, triggered my analysis and pattern recognition, like, what's going on? So anyway, it showed me this. So this is how the split happens. The intent to create the masculine creates the feminine, and the feminine tears out half of her heart chakra to create the masculine soul. And that's the wound between the two. They're so attracted to each other, and you so need each other, and you're always working in lockstep. That's the wound that we need to attend to. Like we're still arguing over what is a woman and what is a man. And I was so drawn to a Cherokee proverb that I made at the dedication of my book because it really helped me understand femininity. And it says that a woman's highest calling is to connect a man to his soul so he can unite with source. A man's highest calling is to protect a woman so she can walk the earth unharmed. And they're complementary. One's not above the other. One's not submitting. They're complementary. And that is mirrored in like Cherokee life, in the Maori life in New Zealand, where women are equal, complementary, not servient to men. There's no patriarchy there. So anyway, so the vast majority of my enlightenment experiences, like in the beginning, in 2024 were all about masculine and feminine balance, and all kind of enlightenment brings us this awareness. It's like, thank you to open me so wide to expose the wisdom and the knowledge stored in my soul, which is the same wisdom and knowledge in every other soul, and the same wisdom and knowledge in the universe. It's just embedded in us. It's like if you think about Stephen Hawking's, when he would have an epiphany, a math equation would just land in his head. That's intuitive knowing. Knowing is masculine. Intuitive wisdom, the heart. That's the wisdom, is because wisdom is how we relate to ourselves and relate to others. Like wisdom says the universe is a mirror, showing us ourselves in every moment as a constant feedback loop for self-improvement. Knowledge says we attract what we are through energetic resonance, meaning a vibrational match. Those two, the wisdom and knowledge, are born of the same universal truth. That's how I know when something's true. It's true in multiple places. Those were my beginning of my enlightenment experiences. And then after I accepted the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene, in September of 2025, I had another major enlightenment experience. So there were a lot of prophecies that the Messiah would return the week of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. And my ex-husband's Israeli. I've lived in Israel, so I have some awareness, but I don't know that much about Judaism. And so that week I'm like, okay, we'll see. And then that Friday, the Sabbath, which is the feminine in the Jewish calendar. It's a time of, it's the surrender to rest. Come home, take care of yourself. In traditional Judaism, people would walk on Saturdays, no drive, no work. No, work is masculine, surrender is feminine. So that Friday afternoon, because I know like around 12 o'clock things shut down in Israel. So Friday afternoon, I would have been home in Israel. And I summarized all the wisdom from my book, which is something I've been wanting to do for months and months and months, and it hadn't come out of me. It just came out of me that day. I'm like, okay, cool. And I made a video about it. Oh, and 2 days prior, I had an experience at 1 a.m. where I had been doing research on Sophia, which is wisdom, and Christ, which is knowledge, and early Christianity, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I started to think, is my soul Sophia? Like, is that me? And I woke up at 1 a.m. and I just, oh, Sophia, it just like came out of me so sweet. And then within a minute, there was a thunder and lightning storm. Mother Earth, the weather is the emotions of the earth. It just hit like out of nowhere. There was no other lightning storm for like months and months. And I live in Southern California, so we don't get that many of them. Like, oh, that's that. And then 2 days later, I did that. Right? I wrote my 6 Divine Feminine Self-Love Strategies, the free ebook below. And then the next day, I did 2 more videos. And then I sat in my recliner and I had a huge enlightenment experience. And I was shown that, it's like the rapture, like it was just like the second coming. It's just like when the enlightenment experience is super intense, I just vocalize without a control. It just comes out of me. That didn't happen the first time. But that was just like, it was that intense coming out of me. And almost immediately, Native American souls came through and told me that we have an agreement between our souls to heal the manifest destiny wound, to heal the wound where we killed the buffalo and we, destroyed the Native American population and the beavers and the otters, that wound came through. I'm like, okay, great, okay. And I thought, oh, well, later on I thought, I've always had a second name from my mom, Shenandoah. That's a Native American name, the Great Plains. It means Great Plains or Daughter of the Stars. Thank you, Mom. And, when I was in Israel, I went on the USS Shenandoah because I was working at the USO, which brings together the Second Coming and the Great Purification, which is Native American. And the Great Purification is a word from the Hopi tribe in Arizona. I was born in Arizona. So that came through. And then immediately I was shown that I'm in a covenant with 3 other women. Catherine, Princess of Wales. My grandfather's name is William. My dad's name was William. My brother's name is William. Signs and synchronicities, that's communication from the heart and the soul. And that's universe is a mirror. Look, that's me. I resonate there. It's like 3 times a charm, right? And then, so Catherine, thank you. And then Candace. Okay, what does Catherine do? Catherine is compassionate protection. Candace Owens, authoritative, insightful communication. Usha Vance, presidential cultivator. She knows how to cultivate and grow a man. Well, so does Catherine. And I don't know Candace's husband. I have to imagine he's amazing too. So that was, the Second Coming, that enlightenment experience. That wasn't so much about masculine and feminine, about bringing all those pieces together and seeing what needed to have done, but in order to create coherence in our hearts, and then to create heaven on earth, we all have to do the work. In 2012, the Mayan calendar, stopped and people thought, oh, it's the end of the world. No, it was the end of a time cycle. And the time cycle is for self-healing. So now is the time we're all supposed to heal ourselves. It wasn't time 2,000 years ago. It wasn't time 1,000 years ago. Our souls plan everything. The field and the soul governing agency of the particle, right? Our souls take care of the particle of the body. And so now is the time for everybody to heal. And we've all heard the saying, no one's coming to save you. And when you realize that and you accept that you're capable of saving yourself, then you're not worried about someone dropping out of the sky saving you. Well, how does that align with the fact that we live in a holographic universe and we're made in the image of God per Christians? There's so much cognitive dissonance in their arguments because they erased 17 of the Gospels, kept 14 to, create a church that worked for the nation state, not one that gave inner authority to individuals to expand their emotional range to include enlightenment. But now we're ready for that. We're ready for everyone to experience enlightenment, and we need healthy boundaries around us, because I can tell you, when I experienced enlightenment as a woman, it was gnarly. I called the police on my ex-husband based on what I was shown. And I had to call back and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I hadn't slept in 3 days. Now, with something going on over there, I'm extremely intuitive. No one's told me anything, but also I don't talk to my ex-husband. He won't talk to me. We have arguments. So, it was really scary for my kids. And Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining beings of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And Christianity promotes humility above enlightenment. Humility is a surrender. Enlightenment's a rise. It's interesting. So, oh, sorry. Anyway, I'll end the video here. I hope that was helpful. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and take care.